The two Jakes.
Good morning.
Morning, sunshine.
Yes.
How you doing?
All right. I'm Ben Lustig.
I'm Jake Thornton.
Or the two
aka
Jakes.
the two Jakes.
Yeah, I guess he's a split personality today. And
movie reference every day.
Right. Welcome to Ben and Jake Write a Movie, where we have decided to be insane and actually write our next spec live. Here.
Live.
But if you missed the live stream, you can always join us on our Facebook page, Lustig and Thornton, or at our YouTube page. Also,
we don't have a vanity link yet, so
no.
we will do. But you need 100 subscribers to do that. So
yes,
help us out.
Subscribe on YouTube. We are also doing little nugget episodes. So if you don't have time to sit through the whole hour, but want to catch one of the main points of what the episode was, you can go to our YouTube channel for that.
Yep.
And yeah, let's get the day started.
Yeah. I've got my coffee. Have you got your coffee, Ben?
I've got my coffee.
We're going to be
essential.
Okay,
go on. Mine. It's so cute.
Oh, little pudgy pug. So where are we up to? So first day we started to crack an idea. We talked about what things we were currently interested in and arrived at this really interesting concept that I think is a pretty fun movie. And I think a pretty simple story. That being a chase movie, whereby our protagonists have to be getting to a certain place at a certain time, a la Midnight Run, with elements of the Terminator, or more the Terminator with elements of Midnight Run, with a demon who has been sent to get the Antichrist to a certain place by a certain time. Yes. And we both went away and watched both the Terminator and Midnight Run as well-filling activities to give us ideas of both structure and tone. And there are a bunch of other movies that we're going to watch. Maybe we'll probably do one, I think maybe next week, to kind of, again, be adding to the mental imagery that we would like to, the sandbox that we'd like to play in. And then yesterday we did a breakdown of those movies. And talk to each other about what works and that we can use as inspiration, as jumping off points. And to be clear, like we were saying yesterday, we're not copying those movies. This is just going, what lives in a similar space?
Yeah, what works, what doesn't,
what
kind of thing. It was a very good recap, Jake. We ended yesterday talking about our next step in the process, which would usually be to kind of macro it out in terms of structure, in terms of how the movie is going to live. But we also talked about, and I think it's important before we get to structure still, to talk about antagonists.
Yeah.
And to talk about who the bad guy is, or bad guys or girls or whomever. So that we know where we're going and who we're up against. I had a thought over the night, whereby I started to think about kind of the aspect of the movie that feels like we might want to just look at it, and it has to do with the specificity of the religious aspect of what we're doing. So, for example, what I mean by this is, obviously it's not a religious movie, but by saying the words the Antichrist, it is by its very nature assuming that actually has meaning, and that Antichrist would have power, and thus the Christian ideas are correct. And that's not, you could tell me to shut up, by the way, anytime. But I was thinking about how some other movies, and the example I have is Ghostbusters, right? So in Ghostbusters, there is a demon ghost from another realm type mythology of evil that has an almost almost religious sense, because they talk about, oh, this is Old Testament type stuff, or they talk about Sumerians and things like that. But it doesn't lock you into any specific lore whereby you're saying one thing or another. It's kind of creating its own thing, and yet it's also familiar at the same time. And I was just wondering, and it's really just a question of going, the idea of a demon, I feel like, is just out there and fine. I wonder if the idea of the mythology behind the Antichrist versus the bringer of doom, the bringer of the apocalypse, the bringer of the end of days, whatever, like a broader kind of sense of what that could be, so that it's not locked into one specific mythology.
Sure. I mean, let's talk about it. I think what you get through saying it's the Antichrist, and to be clear, it's not saying that we're Christian. Neither me nor Ben are Christians.
No.
That's
also kind of the point.
Which, yes. But that, again, if you're a Christian, I totally respect your faith. So I'll use the word mythology, but it's not meant to be in any way disparaging to your beliefs. But there is a cultural mythology that we understand as present in the Bible. Again, likewise, if I were to say Zeus and the Greek gods, you would go, I have an innate understanding of what that might be.
Here's the difference.
Gods, again, same thing. It gives you a very simple and easy way in. So that's my observation for it. And again, the other observation for why I think it's good is because I think it's just it makes it a very easy concept to understand. There's no, again, it's really part of that same point. It is a very simple concept to understand. I don't have to. In Ghostbusters, they had to spend some time explaining what that was. Now, was that a 20-minute speech? No, it wasn't a 20-minute.
Literally, no, it was probably shorter than Terminator.
Sure, but again, they did use something. In that particular case, ancient Sumeria.
But I think the ancientness of it is where I respond, and I think I prefer, because, like, you could say if it was, we're saying that the Greek myths were real and that this is Pandora's box, I go, okay, cool, that's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. There's no one alive today that would know one way or the other, and there's no one alive today that really believes in that. Anyway, so it's almost just pure fiction, right? Yeah. But when I go specifically the Antichrist, I'm acknowledging an idea that is specific to a current faith that is practiced today. And so I don't want to alienate either people who practice that faith or people who don't, who go, well, I don't believe in that anyway, so who cares if she's the Antichrist? Because it's something that's kind of active today, I could say just as cleanly and as simply that she's the bringer of the apocalypse, and everyone knows what that is. There's nothing non-understandable about that in terms of cleanliness.
Well, but yes, there is, because I don't know what that actually means.
Well, I don't know what the Antichrist means. Do you? What does the Antichrist actually mean?
I come to it with a feeling of what I think it means.
What is it?
That being, yes, and these are all great questions. If you were to say who and what is the Antichrist, I would say it is a being who, when born, when created, would bring mankind into an age of darkness and misery. That's what that means to me. Okay, as a layman, as a non-believer, through portrayals in media, through what little understanding I have of the Bible. But again, like, what do I understand Christ to mean? Well, I understand Christ to mean a savior, a someone of pure love. Again, as someone who isn't a Christian believer, I go, that's what that means. So what's the antithesis of that?
Yeah, obviously, yes.
Yeah.
But I think that okay, so here's maybe a compromise. We do this a lot. We compromise all the time, Jake and I. It's part of how we find the best versions of ideas. As you were saying that, I said, okay, is there a version whereby we could figure out what that being or create what that being might be called in other faiths? And thus, when we refer to them as the Antichrist, it's also, they've called it this person. Because what about pre-Christianity? What about like where does the mythology begin and not begin? Is there just this idea that are we just saying that Lucifer is real, or that I kind of want. I don't know. I think I'm looking for something that feels more universal. And I don't know that the specific Christianity.
I'm gonna push back because the comp to Ghostbusters and Gozer, you understood the broad concept of Ghostbusters, which was ghosts.
Yeah,
that was the world in which you were living in, and you didn't go into it with Gozer. You didn't go into it with Gozer at all. You went into it going, here are people who can get ghosts out of your house.
Sure.
And then they added one more thing toward, maybe towards the middle latter half, going, by the way, there's this nexus of evil created by this being called Gozer.
Sure.
Now, with ours, what we're saying, and again, why I think this mythology helps us is because we get everything else with it. We're not just talking about the Antichrist. We're talking about demons. We're talking about angels.
But you can still do
those kinds of things.
Like using exactly what you just said about Ghostbusters. You go into it going, I understand what demons are. I don't need to necessarily know the full mythology behind the specificity. In fact, we even talked about holding back exactly potentially who she is or what she is or what the purpose behind this mission is until halfway through the movie. So the idea of demons is still just as
I'll also add a very clear understanding of heaven and hell, good and evil. The aspect that we were talking about the other day that I really found intriguing was an angel goes to a demon, someone who I think is inherently good, goes to someone that I think is inherently evil, saying, do this thing. And you went into it with all the understandings of this is a good person, this is a good being, this is a bad being, and then playing on that over the course of the movie. When we're having to create a mythology, I don't come with that pre-invested understanding of what those things are. And therefore, I think we miss an opportunity that presents itself in a very clean way. So that would be my argument for it.
Yeah. I think I hear everything that you're saying. Obviously, there's still something that I feel like bumps me about the specificity, and maybe it's partly also because I don't see it as much of a help as maybe you do, and I actually see it as specificity that doesn't really I don't know, like I go, like, you could create a celestial being without and most religions over time believe in gods, so there's an agent or some form of good, quote unquote, good person. I also think that by doing what we're doing in terms of flipping the idea of a demon and maybe even making this celestial being a bad guy in the end doesn't mess with anyone's ideas of that. It feels like it's its own thing. but I still understand what those are. There's still total pre-awareness to all of that. It just isn't
To what though exactly? To a
to
god?
God and a demon. Yeah.
So, but again, if we're going to go, it was a god and a demon. When you say a god, you are
not a god. No, I'm talking about God, singular, monotheistic.
Okay.
And an agent of God. I understand God and I understand demons.
Right. So I guess my question is, how then in that are we not playing in the concepts of Judeo-Christianic religion? If we're saying,
well, even Islam has a singular God as well,
and that's Judeo-Christianic. It's the same root. It's the same God by a different name. You know. Yeah. But again, if we were going to
exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying don't specify to Christian. Antichrist is not Judeo-Christian Islamic. It is specific to Christian.
Of course. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, there's no such thing as the Antichrist in my faith.
Sure.
Versus if you create the idea of this fantasy of this being that could bring pain and suffering to the entire world. In some cultures, they call it the Antichrist. And in Islam, they call it this. In Judaism, they called it this. You can still keep what you're saying in terms of, yes, she's the Antichrist for Christians. And yes, she's the blank for Jews, you know.
Sure. I think I understand a little bit more what you're saying.
It broadens it rather and it makes it relatable to everyone in a way that doesn't block out, oh, this movie isn't necessarily for me, or oh, I don't actually like this because of my beliefs. And it's one of those things where I don't usually pay too much attention to that kind of stuff when we're writing things. Certainly it wasn't something we worried about when we wrote Winter's Night dealing with Santa Claus. And yet it's the specificity.
I will say we had long conversations in the early days of writing specifically about this.
Well, yes, about not being religious specific. Yes, we never called him Saint Nicholas, for example.
That's right. And you had expressed a concern, was this particular story going to be offensive to people who were deeply into?
And interestingly, we had a recent experience whereby someone said I wouldn't do this movie because of the basis of the movie in a specific religious context. So, and I know I'm being vague, everybody, but I have to in this particular case.
Well, it was a reimagining of a Bible story, and we took it to a producer who said, my wife would not be happy if I did this because we are.
Which is total, which I respect. And that's why I'm saying I don't think this idea requires the sole idea of this being a Christian apocalypse. Because by just saying that the Antichrist is real and she is the bringer of, and she will be the Antichrist, is an assumption that Christian ideas are then real.
Right. But, I mean, when you go and see, Clash of the Titans, you aren't going, well, hang on a minute, is this movie saying that?
But Clash of the Titans
was all real? It's not. It's a movie.
Yeah, but Clash of the Titans is period, and it's totally fantasy.
Or when you go and watch, like when I watched Legion, when we watched Constantine. I'm watching right now Sandman. I'm not going, hang on a minute, Neil Gaiman. You're saying Lucifer's real. I have to reject this as being false because it's mythology and it's story. So that's why I go.
I guess here's my question for you: why are you opposed to saying in Christianity she's called the Antichrist, but in these other religions she's called something else?
I'm not opposed to that.
Then can we compromise there?
I think that the cleaner idea, though, is to use the concepts that we already know, that we already understand concepts of angels, we already understand concepts of heaven and hell, and we already understand concepts of demons, regardless of whether or not we think they're Judeo-Christianic or not. So that I feel that it helps us more to live in an existing mythology rather than say, oh, in this it's that, and this it's that, etc. I just think it's cleaner. That's all. It's not that I'm not willing to compromise, but I do think that that's the cleaner version of it. So,
okay. I mean, let's leave it on the table, because
sure.
I think there's a version whereby we can have both, and I don't think it makes it messy. I just think it actually makes it more universal.
Sure.
In fact, there's no reason that our central character needs to be Christian to be the Antichrist, and that's interesting.
I agree. Totally.
Especially
Christians would argue probably isn't Christian.
True, and yet, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's a. Yeah, absolutely.
You understand my point? I think there's ways to play in the thematic ideas of what we're talking about here.
Absolutely.
Whether it's, I don't think you get away with a movie about a demon and the Antichrist and not play in thematic ideas of faith. And so I think there's a broadening out of that. I think it just naturally is going to be part of it, because the belief our hero either is going to 100% believe everything this demon says off the top, which I don't think is realistic, or they're going to be a modern person in 2022, which means they're going to go, holy shit, wait, what?
Totally.
You know?
I completely think it's that.
And so if that's the case, I feel like there's a natural inclination then to be basically saying, actually, there's much more truth to what people believe in, or to what people don't believe than you know. And it's not specific to one chosen people who have it right. It's specific to the majority of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's
in one way or another.
Yeah,
had it right at one time.
Yeah. So then, I mean, is there, coming to your side of the table and just having a little look at it from your side too, going, there are beings, otherworldly beings, who assist and guide mankind, and they're called different things in different cultures. In Celtic mythology, they were called fairies. In Christian mythology, they're called angels. In this other they're called something else.
Yeah,
but they are
all that. That would be part of the process. Yeah,
totally. And there are the demons of the world. They're called, Ifrits in some cultures.
Totally.
Demons in others.
You're saying that these things are real.
These things are real as well.
These ideas are real.
And they are constantly trying to push mankind in one direction or the other. And the world is messy and difficult because sometimes these forces are winning and sometimes these forces are winning. And there is a battle,
struggle between good and evil that has lasted for all time.
Totally.
And it's been called many different things, but it's
in many different ways. Sure. Okay. I can get on board with that. Yeah.
Cool.
I think and what I think that will do, to your point, is I think that will allow whoever's watching it to make that mean whatever that means for them.
Yes.
In a lot of places in the West, they'll go, "Oh, I got it. They're angels and demons."
Yeah. And when you play it in China, they can put whatever they want on it. I mean, it was interesting with Winter's Night being a story of Santa Claus. We were literally told this movie won't play in China. And that's an interesting thing to think about. I mean, when you're coming up with ideas, and I think for writers who are just breaking into the business, I don't think you should focus on this too much. But it is a reality, which is we're a global business now. Hollywood is not just about making movies for the United States. It's not just about making movies for Judeo-Christian cultures. It's about making movies for money. and the largest.
Cold hard cash.
That's the truth. I mean, let's be honest. These are multinational conglomerates that own these studios, and they're about making movies for money. And so the wider the audience, the more money you make. Or if you can really get into a niche audience where every single person in that niche audience loves it, you can kind of do that too. But it was interesting to hear, our movie Winter's Night was bought by Sony, and it was awesome. I mean, we had like a 5-studio bidding war, and yet at the end of the day, one of the concerns was, is this movie too expensive for the audience that will actually be interested in watching it? And the conclusion at the studio was possibly. Now, different regimes had their own ideas on that. We got very close to actually having that movie made, and maybe we'll go into greater depth on that story later on. But the reality is, the question at many times was, how does this play in cultures that don't believe in Santa Claus? And I think they made an interesting point. We argued that Santa Claus in that story was a universal figure who actually was a derivative of many different cultures, did not stem just from Christianity, which is the truth. And thus, the idea behind him should be more of a universal idea. At the end of the day, we didn't necessarily win that battle. But so anyway, point being, bring it back to this new movie. I think the more universal we can make it, the better. If in the Indian subcontinent, places, whatever they believe could be this being into this role.
Sure. Okay, cool.
All right.
So and that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you get through a moment of difficulty.
Yeah.
You each have different ideas about what works and what's right. And ultimately, I think the best compromises are ones where you both come away happy, rather than both coming away feeling like you didn't get what you wanted. So,
and I think that's happened. I came into this thinking, let's create a Gozer, but I hear what you're saying. And so I think that this is a really great way for us to kind of move forward. So that was one thing that,
and I'm just gonna, one of the things that I've been thinking about over the past 24 hours, and again, it's been born out of some of the conversations that we've been having, is playing with the expectation of the movie as you go into it, and then how you then flip and reverse or add complications to that story. Because I think we should think about it going into it. We, the audience, should believe what our demon is told. You need to get the person from A to B by this time, and that is what the movie is going to be. You need to protect Sarah Connor from being killed by the Terminator. Now that, I think probably it does remain pretty simple in the Terminator.
It does. It doesn't change.
The only thing that is then added to it is then you realize that Carl Reese is actually the father of John Connor, the leader of the Resistance.
Yeah. But that never becomes a complication. Interestingly enough, they didn't make that choice. I think if we were writing that movie, probably would have made that into an obstacle at some point when that reveal came about. But interestingly, and I think Cameron, I would never criticize that movie. I think I think he did. He made the choice, and it worked very well to go. This is a character choice, not a plot choice.
Yes. But in something like Midnight Run, and what I think it does so well in this particular movie is you go, okay, got to get the Duke back to LA by Friday. I go, okay, that's what it looks. That's what winning looks like at the start. And then all these other things happen that complicate it. And there are twists. All of a sudden you go, oh, hang on a minute. The guy who's actually after this guy is the guy who took Jack down. Oh, hang on a minute. Now there's another guy going after as well. Oh, in the middle of it, he goes to go and visit his wife and solves that problem. And even up right up until the end, you're going, oh, is it still going to look like him taking him in and doing it? You don't expect in the middle of it that they're going to take down the mafia boss. That's not presented at the beginning at all. It becomes this whole extra thing. And then only at the end you go, oh, he's not going to turn him in. But he still won by getting him there on Friday at midnight. And he even says, I would have done it. I would have done it if I wanted to. So anyway, the expectation at the beginning of Midnight Run is one thing, and then it becomes something else, and yet also comes back to what it was presented at the beginning, but in a new and different way.
And I think based on what we've talked about already, I like having something like that happen here, whereby our expectation is that the demon that we create will, of course, be able to follow through on what they think they're going to do, which is turn over this human, probably to be sacrificed or killed or something.
Yeah, bad. I think we have to figure out exactly what that is.
And that's actually was where we're going full circle now to the real question of what is the bad guy plot, because I think that is ultimately the twist. So as we've been talking, we're saying that there's going to be multiple versions of antagonists here, a la Midnight Run. It's not singular like the Terminator, although interestingly enough, the cops and the Terminator become an obstacle that is very effective.
Absolutely, because when they arrest them, they are keeping them still.
Yes.
And they give Arnie the opportunity to come and get them, which he takes. Absolutely.
So we, I think, have the opportunity in this to go, well, there's the other demons who would probably be trying to either capture this person because they don't want, I mean, it's kind of interesting. It's like the bad guys actually don't want him/her to die. Or if they do, maybe in order for her to be, I mean, this could be cool. Maybe in order for, I keep jumping back to her for some reason. I know we talked about Paul Rudd, but I keep jumping back to her. Whatever. Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, the movie writes itself, and you just kind of have to go with it.
Become a conduit for it as it flows through you.
You just kind of go, oh, the movie wants to be this. And that's important to listen to that, by the way.
Jumping on that, I think that's a very, very good point. We actually had an experience with that last year, and we wrote this spec, and the first version of it was very much how we, or initially going into it, it really felt like it was this, hard R kind of action movie. And then through the writing of it, it started to not feel that it was exactly that, and that it needed to be somewhat lighter in tone. And it was a really interesting observation to go, this is what the movie is telling us it needs to be.
The story was actually not wanting to be told the way we were telling it.
And it's an interesting thing, and it almost kind of gets a bit kind of spiritual. Like, are you just a conduit for this stuff? But
we sound crazy.
We sound crazy, but like, I believe that you have a conscious and an unconscious mind. And the conscious mind can be very much like, oh, I think it's this, I think it's this, I think it's this. But that feeling of nagging, that something isn't right, that something isn't right, that something isn't right. I think sometimes you just have to, in fact, in the vast majority of times, you should at least listen to it. And I feel that 9 times out of 10, that inner voice is just telling you the right direction for things to go. So obviously, in this example, is the protagonist male or is the protagonist female? And I think it's taking pause and listening to that. Your own inner wisdom, I think is really valuable.
Sorry, so thank you. Back to what was I talking about? So her, I can't remember now.
We were talking about villain plot and what she means to the villains.
Yes. So that's what I was saying. So are they? Let's say we have 3 different main obstacles, right? You've got the Celestials, you've got the demons, and maybe even the police, because this girl has been kidnapped for all intents and purposes,
yeah.
right? So just starting there, and we could possibly even branch out to some kind of, maybe if we wanted to go organized crime or something like that. There's something fun, especially if we don't know how the demons work, and maybe the way in which the demons work has something to do with possessing the bodies. And I know I talked about not possession in a previous episode, but even if it's taking the human form, like our demon, because our demon obviously is going to be in human form. So what do these demons look like? It's almost like, Smith in the Matrix. But there's an idea to say that the demons need her to turn her into this bringer of doom, this antichrist. The angels or the celestials needs her to kill her before she becomes the antichrist. The cops are trying to stop our demon from kidnapping her, which ultimately would put her in danger. Either of these other two parties.
Yeah, just like the police in the Terminator, their concerns are based in the now.
Yes.
In the very present secular world. They don't know or care about what's going on this big scale.
And probably don't believe it.
So I think, yes, it comes to villain plot, and also that villain plot comes to who is, I'm going to continue to call this person Sam, because Sam could also be a girl's name. Who is Sam to this plan?
I think Sam is a threat to the Celestials, and she is a prize to the demons.
Great. I think that's right. What then? Yeah. So she means victory for the forces of darkness if she's in Seattle on Friday night at midnight, and defeat to the angels. So So I love
something like that.
And I think that's simple, and I think you can understand that. So then, what then is the interesting spin on? And again, I liked what we were talking about, whereby this celestial being, aka angel, or whatever we want to call them, comes to this demon at the beginning and says, "I need you to do this," because I think that's interesting.
Yes. Well, and how much truth does the demon or does the celestial give the demon?
Yes.
Ultimately, the celestial is going to offer the demon the reward that they know that they want. Essentially, it's like the celestial is the offering the apple in the Garden of Eden, to use another biblical.
Yes, sure. Yeah.
Totally. Pulling the demon away from their own kind and saying, I can give you the thing that you've always wanted and never been able to have, but you have to do this task for me. But does not give the demon the whole truth. Only gives the demon what the demon needs to know. And so the question that I immediately ask is, why can't the celestial do this on their own? There's, I'm sure, a very good answer for that.
Yeah.
And if they can't do it on their own, who are they going to create or use as obstacles when they realize, which they will, that the demon might not follow through on their part of the bargain? Because that's really when they become the bad guys, right? At a certain point in the movie, and it's probably somewhere around the midpoint of the movie, it's probably the big turn, the demon goes, shit, I'm being used. I was meant to take you and kill you. And I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And so when they don't follow through, when the angels or the celestials realize that now the demons become a turncoat, it's a little I think of like these hitman movies where the hitman, in fact, that's a good movie to watch, interestingly enough, where they have like second thoughts about their job. Essentially, they go, oh, I was given this job and now I decided I can't follow through with it.
Totally.
There's a sense of that, and that's what turns the celestials against our heroes as well. So the demons would be our challenge right off the bat. The cops would be onto us right off the bat. but the Celestials would be on our side until probably the midpoint. But what we don't realize is that they've never been on our side. They've always been bad.
Totally.
And now at the midpoint, they become an active antagonist.
Yeah. I'm thinking about everything that everyone wants out of the Duke in Midnight Run again. So everybody wants the Duke, but for their own purposes. Joey Pants wants the Duke because he's bailed him out for $450,000 and he wants his money back or he's going to lose his business. But there's the guy who's listening in on the phone who works for Joey Pants, who's actually working for the mafia and is feeding all the information that he's getting because he wants a kickback from the mafia because they're going to look after him. You've got Alonzo Mosley, the FBI agent, who wants the Duke because he wants him to confess in federal court. You've got the mafia who want the Duke because they want to kill him for revenge for stealing all that money. Then you've got the other bounty. You've got Jack, who's after the Duke in the middle of all this for his own personal things. Then you've got another bounty hunter in the middle of it all. And I actually thought they were going to add one more antagonist into it as well. Because there's a moment where they like rob this bar and they see them running. I thought they were going to come after them. They were going to be this whole other thing. You got our money, motherfuckers. You know, they didn't do that, but it might have been fun if they had.
That actually could be a really fun thing that happens in our movie, interestingly enough. Like if our characters are on the road and our demon doesn't have very good like social skills or you know, like to piss off a whole biker gang and then have to go on the run, like a totally new antagonist where you go,
absolutely. Totally.
And then the other thing I think
it's the Blues Brothers. Again, one of my favorite movies growing up. Like they go into the bar, like at the end when they're all after them. You've got the Nazis after them. You've got the bluegrass band after them. You've got the cops after them. Like they're all after them for their. You've got Carrie. Princess Leia, Carrie Fisher after them. Yes. You know, he just got just all after these people for different reasons.
Yeah, interesting. I'm going to do something that we haven't done since, I believe, Tuesday. And I'm going to bring up our scratch pads so that we can put some of these really great ideas down and kind of keep going, keep pushing forward with where we're at. I think all of this is really exciting. You know, I think some of what we're talking about right now is trying to fit these pieces, trying to fit these really interesting puzzle pieces into the place that we want them to be. And that starts to become the challenge. You know, it's like, okay, we've got all these antagonists, these really cool ideas. Where do they fit? As you're saying, what do they want that's different from what somebody else wants? So here we go. Let me just share this with everyone. Hold on one second. We've got, for those of you who are listening on our Apple podcasts, thank you very much. If you do want to see what we are working on our screen, make sure you come to YouTube or Facebook. All right. So that should be where we're at here. Where are we at here? Let's see. All right, so here we go. So basically, let's go on here, and I just want to write down some of the things we're talking about. So we started today really talking about the ideas of the mythology are universal.
Good and evil.
Good and evil. Referred to as different things throughout
different cultures
and cultures. All right. So then we're talking about antagonists. So we're looking at demons. We're looking at celestials / angels. I'm sure we'll end up just using the term angels, but we can, again, it's this idea of universal mythology. Then we're talking about the cops, and possibly a couple others you know,
I like to reference the biker gang,
etc.
And Carrie Fisher.
Carrie Fisher. Carrie Fisher.
For those of you who don't know that reference, in the Blues Brothers, you find out that the character of Jake was engaged to be married, and that she's been haunting him ever since he was released from prison. And she turns up several times and just starts firing at them. And Elwood keeps going, "Who is that girl?" You know?
Yeah. So the Celestial is going to give our demon.
Can you? I'm not sure if our window is covering our faces. Covering that up.
You know what? It might be. So let
put
me
us on the side if you want.
Roll up here.
Also scroll up. Yes.
Yes. Celestial is going to give our demon a task.
Yes.
But not the whole truth.
Yes.
When the demon discovers they've been lied to.
Yes.
And it looks like they may not fulfill their end, the angels become a force against them. Now let's talk about that for a second.
Yes.
And this goes to something that Jake and I always have to deal with, which is world building and rules. Because if you're building a world, that world must have rules. Even if you never talk about them in the movie, you need to feel that at least the writers understand them. I do think that's important to creating consistency. Sometimes during the development of a movie and even the making of a movie, the people who come on board after the original writers don't understand the rules, don't talk to the original writers, and thus break those rules without even knowing.
And therefore break the movie.
That's a whole other story. So for us, though, when we're starting a spec, we like to know our rules. So let's talk about the angels and the demons and what they are capable of doing on Earth.
Yes.
And how that affects the story as a whole. Because I think there's an interesting way to differentiate them between each other, and also kind of help us with the plot element of what we're dealing with. So what if the demons can live among us to a certain degree, maybe not indefinitely, but they can come to our
realm,
realm,
yes,
and look like us and affect change in a bad way.
Yeah.
But that the angels or celestials can't.
Yeah,
they
I like
this. Change through manipulating without a physical presence.
Sure.
So they do things perhaps that are encouraging people to be better or to do things that are good.
Whereas a demon might actually physically do it.
Yes, like a demon might kill someone. An angel might go to someone and whisper, and in their dreams convince them to make a huge donation the next morning. You know, like, totally. Or angels don't do anything. I mean, it is possible to say that in the past, God allowed angels to interfere in humanity, and it didn't go so well. And so he pulled them all out. He said, guys, humans need to figure it out on their own. And maybe some of the angels weren't thrilled with that. Maybe some of the angels said, you know what? These people can't do it on their own, especially if
that's really interesting. There. So, and it comes to a thought that I've had about why is this celestial being doing this?
Yes.
Why does the celestial being want the Antichrist to come to Earth? Well, he wants God, the power, the
wants
sword.
The Antichrist to come to Earth? You think the angel wants the Antichrist?
Well, let me finish my thought.
Oh,
yes,
okay.
Because he wants something bad to happen that makes them change the rules about interfering. He thinks
I've been confused.
Was that?
I've been confused. I didn't think that I thought that the demons wanted the Antichrist to be born. I didn't think that the angels.
Hold up for a second. Let me just finish my thought.
Yeah.
The demons do want that. That is what they want. But what's happened, and they've perhaps been trying for years to try and make this happen, have been unable to for insert reasons here. The Archangel Gabriel suddenly goes, here's what we need. I want war in Iraq. I want war in Iraq to happen. I want the angels and God to get involved again with humanity. So I'm going to make 9/11 happen so that we can go to war against the demons, which is something that we haven't done for ever since that moment that you just talked about, where they were not allowed to go and do this thing. But so he is trying to make this happen so that he can get God to go, okay, yes, you're right, we should interfere because it's all going to shit down there. That's my broad concept about it.
There's some issues I have with that. So the first would be that it takes away the stakes if both sides want the same thing. And if if our angel believes that her becoming the Antichrist is just something to start a war that they could win, and then they just get to be down on Earth, I'm not really sure what the full danger is there. But then also I go, now both of our, like, why are the demons trying to do anything? Just let the angel do what he's wanting to do. He wants to bring the Antichrist to Earth, that they win. There's no conflict.
Maybe it doesn't work. So then I guess the question is why does the Celestial go to the demon and say, do this thing?
Because I think the Celestial can't actually kill our girl in the way that the Celestial needs her killed in order for her not to be the Antichrist. And they are interfering. So they are doing what you're saying, which is I'm going against the orders because I think I know what's right. But they're interfering in a way that is deceitful. So whereas the demons want her to become the Antichrist, the angel doesn't. But the angel's not supposed to interfere. And instead, by interfering, they end up almost making it happen. The angel literally puts the Antichrist in the hands of a demon, which is probably the most dangerous thing they could do. And that's another whole question to ask, which is why? If they have any influence over
absolutely,
humanity.
Why? Yeah, and that's it. Is why?
But I think it has to be because they can't physically do it themselves, and
but do what?
Well, it's got to be stop it. It's got to be that I want to stop this thing from happening. I have righteous reasons, but ultimately an innocent person is going to die as a result. We've talked about this kind of moral dilemma in movies a lot, right?
Okay, so Angel wants the being who could be this being of ultimate power, ultimate evil, destroyed. And that has to happen in a certain way, in a certain place.
Yeah. Just killing them wouldn't be enough. And we'll have to figure out what that mythology means.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like its soul will just pass to another being. And we need to be done.
Totally. It has to be
around at this point for that soul to be gone.
Is it like through some form of ritual? Yes, can only be done at this place at this time on this
stone stone circle.
There could be a way in which to obviously come up with that aspect.
Yeah. So we need them killed. Now, Demon, who's been doing demony things for a while, but has been unsatisfied with their existence, says, you know what? So point is that Demon is betraying its own kind by doing this.
Correct, because Demon has decided that multiple centuries of demon life ain't that fun.
Right.
And it's for selfish reasons at first.
Right. So what then does the demon, and this is just where we just have to have clarity of purpose for all of our different factions.
Sure.
What is the moment where the demon realizes that this is the wrong thing to do? Because if what the angel wants is a good thing, the end of the Antichrist.
Right.
And yet, if the Antichrist does does come to Earth, that's going to be going with her own kind again. What's the version that isn't either and is their own thing?
So I think it has to do with the thematic idea we talked about 2 sessions ago, in episode 2, which has to do with choice and free will. And I think that while the angel doesn't trust humanity to make the right choice, that the demon must believe that this girl or this woman or whomever it is that is quote unquote the Antichrist doesn't have to be. That they have the ability to not go down that path, and that sacrificing them in order to stop something that doesn't have to happen is wrong. That giving them the opportunity to have free will is right. And it's the same way in which they have not had choice. It's what we were talking about the other day about, what do you have control over? What is your choice? The demon doesn't need a soul to be good. The demon could continue to live immortally on Earth the way that they have been and not act like a demon. But they think that the only way that they could actually be good is by getting a soul. So there's this joint kind of change between them that both our human and our demon realize, which goes against the beliefs of both their kinds.
So let me just go to the other question about the demons. What does victory for the demons look like?
Her becoming the Antichrist.
How? What does that? Again, what does that mean, and how? I understand this first aspect of Angel says Friday at midnight in the stone circle, kill Sam. Got it. I have a very clear understanding.
So 2 things. 1, can't let that happen. Demons can't let that happen, which is actually really
absolutely.
So as I was saying before, what's really kind of fun is that actually the demons are trying to save her life more than the angels.
Totally, absolutely.
Which is a total flip on that trope, which is fun. But what they need to do is capture her and corrupt her. So in the same way that evil has influence, if they corrupt her soul, she'll become the Antichrist.
Gotcha. Okay. So that one is more of a we've
been looking for her.
We will have her and take, essentially, because it hits at another idea that we played out a little while ago that used similar mythology. But that's interesting, isn't it? You kind of go, this person has the potential to be the Antichrist. Has the potential to be. The forces of good go, the only way to deal with this problem is to kill them. The demons are like, when we get them, we'll have them. And ultimately, it's going to be, I just think it's about the clarity of going, how, after this story is done, are they going to be going, well, I'm not going to be going with the demons. I'm not going to be being killed by them. And again, it's just coming through to this, ultimately, the ending of the story. What does the ultimate victory look like for our protagonist? Obviously, they're alive, but what?
I think that...
Because at any point I could go, I mean, ultimately, it's what they made Terminator 2. I mean, at the end of Terminator, you don't go, you think, and it would have been fine if it was done. You come to Terminator 2 and go, oh, actually, the future does still exist.
Look, this movie ends with she's alive.
Yeah.
The angels have been, who were bad and going against God's orders, have been punished.
Right.
The demons have been thwarted and gone. Right. And at the end of the day, our demon continues to live on Earth without a soul, but as the person that she or he wants to be.
Yeah.
And our human has decided that they are not going to be the Antichrist, that they won't be corrupted.
Right, but there must be a way that the demons are not easily able to find her and capture her in the future moving forward.
She becomes a nun.
Boom, done.
I don't know. It's not.
Yeah, no, I know totally. Yeah.
We'll figure that part out.
Yeah. Again, and that's just why I'm asking the question. What is that? At the end of Terminator, you go. She's going off to go into hiding. If a Terminator did show up, she'd be prepared for that. Sorry, she's got the dog.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you need to know that at the end, look, maybe they walk off into the sunset together going, we become friends, and if anyone ever tries to come after you, I'll protect you.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Maybe.
You know?
I'm going to be your protector. That's interesting.
And if it is a male-female relationship, or quite frankly, in 2022, if it is any relationship, they could have a romance as well. I mean, we haven't talked about is there a romantic storyline in this, but I'm okay with there being a romantic storyline. Maybe there is. Maybe they end up together.
So I married a demon.
That's the name. We found a title. All right, listen, we are past our hour, which we are so thankful for the people who stuck with us this hour. Thank you so much for watching or listening. Obviously, as always, please feel free to comment and let us know any feedback you may have, things that you would want us to talk about, things that you would want us to change. We are still trying to figure out this format so that it benefits everyone. Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.
See ya. Bye.